and welcome to our Soul Sister Sync video. This is Shaima Jundi.
Hello.
And I'm Arti Kakad.
And we are here to talk to you today about the importance of looking back in order to move forward.
Yes.
So, this stemmed from a recent conversation I had with my own coach, Crystal. So, I had a trigger that I experienced. And when I say trigger, something quite innocuous happened, something quite innocent happened, but for some reason, my behaviour or my emotions in response were quite negative and quite extreme. So I reached out to a coach to look for reasons why that had happened, and she said to me, I think it stems from something that happened in your past. And at first I was a bit resistant. So I was like, I had a great past, I had a great childhood, I have amazing parents, I'm sure it's not that. And she said, well, that's fine and that's good, but regardless of how amazing your childhood has been, you will still have created associations through it. So there will still have been times when something happened and your brain created a negative association with that. And what can happen is, as a protective mechanism, in order to stop you from being hurt again, your brain will produce that same pattern all throughout your life. And so that's what, when we say triggers, that's what we're referring to. And we're here to tell you about how to process those.
Yeah. So you might think to move forward in life, it's important to be good in the present, to look to the future, and that is really important. So the amount of times I teach mindfulness, living in the present, noticing what's in the present, and creating a really good future means imagining a really good future is about to happen. So if I think of the brain is really good at imagining, whether you tell it not to imagine something or to imagine something, it will do it anyway. So if I tell you not to imagine a pink elephant right now, what are you imagining?
A pink fluffy elephant.
Yeah. So it's important to think about something you actually want, and your brain will take you there. At the same time, there will be things stopping you from thinking about that, and those are things that have happened in your past. And the brain has an amazing protection mechanism. So actually, when it's stopping you from moving forward, it is because it's trying to protect you.
Yes.
So it could be because something happened in your past which created a really negative emotion, which, maybe someone laughed at you, maybe someone didn't take you seriously, maybe someone betrayed you, and your brain is kind of thinking, you know what, I'm going to make sure that never happens again, because this feeling you're feeling right now, I'm going to protect you from that. And then in the future, if something similar happens, it's already got a reaction in place. They're sad, angry, frustrated, You might hide away, you might never let yourself do certain things because you're scared of the outcome. Fear of presentations is a situation where this comes up in quite a lot. And there's your brain trying to protect you, but it might not be always so helpful for where you want to go in life. So that's when you need to start going back and thinking, what happened? Is there a different way I could reinterpret that? Is there a different way I could now move forward in my life, having let that go?
Yes. So what are ways that you can identify these and let them go? The tip my coach gave me, which I found very helpful, is journaling. So when you are triggered, even if it's in the moment, and that's probably a good time to do it because the emotions will be very raw, just sit with a journal and know how you're feeling. Know what happened in order to elicit those emotions in you. And before you start, you can ask your intuition, you can ask your higher self, please, with love and understanding, just show me where this comes from. And then just write up whatever comes in for you. The first thing that comes up is probably the right one. And as you're becoming aware of it, just pour love into it. So if it's a situation that happened when you were younger, look at your younger self and just pour love into you at that point. If you're finding the emotions are very raw and you're finding it tricky to come out of that, just try zooming out of it and almost observe yourself as another person. So just watch yourself and say, ooh, okay, I can see myself reacting in that way. I wonder where that comes from. I wonder how that's still serving me. And as you pour love into it, you'll feel that your awareness combined with the love slowly helps it to heal.
Yeah. And another way, if you don't like writing or you just want to use a few different tools, is hypnotherapy and hypnosis, and you can do it yourself as well. So to take yourself into a state of hypnosis, all that is a state of relaxation. So you can just focus on your breath for a little while, take yourself into a comfortable place where you're not going to be disturbed, and then just relax your body from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, one muscle at a time. and that usually takes about 20 minutes. And once you're in that relaxed state, your subconscious is very much more open to suggestion. So that's when you can go back to whatever situation it was that's causing the trigger right now. And similar to the journaling, pour love into it. So talk to that child or that younger you who experienced whatever they experienced. Let them know that, it's okay, you've learned from it now. It's okay to let those emotions go. Give it the love it was looking for at the time. Give it a hug. Talk to it really, really nicely. Explain why it happened, what the people around it were going through, so it can find it easier to forgive them.
Yes.
And then you'll find that you can just then, relax, carry on relaxing, or come out of hypnosis and get on with your day. But you'll find that your subconscious has let things go. And this happened to me recently. I had a session with a fantastic hypnotherapist. Shout out to Lorraine. I'll put her link in the description below. And I managed to let go in hypnosis of some situations that my subconscious was really holding on to, really reacting in a way I didn't want. And then I found that the thoughts I was having after the hypnotherapy session were still the same, but there was no feeling behind them. So it was a bit confusing. I was sort of thinking something and then thinking, oh, I don't feel that. And now my thoughts have changed. So it's all about, like my company name says, your inner conversations, but you do need help changing them sometimes. And the way I see it is that we're trying to move forward in life on a ship. We can learn all these different tools to make sure we're always moving forward, and that's our oars. But then there's all these anchors kind of dragging us down, and that's our sort of past. And the more we can sort of strengthen our oars and strengthen our arms, the better, obviously.
Yes.
But also the more we can sort of cut through those anchors. Sometimes we don't even know they're there. So talking to someone can help you realise that they're there and help you realise what they are, can then cut through them, and then it becomes much more effortless going forward. And I really found that actually with our last video was on self-love, and I was doing the exercise all month. We wouldn't tell you to do something if we weren't doing it ourselves.
For sure.
But suddenly after that session, it just became effortless. It was just like, oh, this is easy now, sort of thing. So you just don't know what's holding you back until you let it go sometimes.
Yes. And one point to make is this is not about blame. So if you're worried about looking back because you think, oh, well, I don't want to blame my parents for something, or I don't want to, push the responsibility onto somebody else, that's admirable and that's fine. This is more about just identifying where it came from. And that person probably had the absolute best of intentions. So it's more just about identifying it so you can release any negativity on your part. And if it helps, do a forgiveness meditation for the situation and maybe for the person. Have a look on YouTube. There are guided meditations. There's some hypnosis on there. So anything you want that can just help you release it will be good. And if you do want further help, because like Artie says, sometimes you don't even know the blocks are there, or sometimes you can't even see what exactly they are. That's what coaches are really, really great for. So Artie's helped me identify a lot of my own stuff. She's great at asking the right questions, because sometimes it just takes someone to ask that question to unlock it within yourself. So reach out to Artie. If it's something to do with relationships and with connection with someone, very, very happy to guide you. Thank you. If it's to do with careers, I spoke to a wonderful lady yesterday, Shoma Ghosh. I'll put her website in the comments at the bottom. So she works very similar to us in a very holistic way. She can guide you to the career that you love and to the working life that you love. So there'll always be somebody. Go with the person you're drawn to, and they will intuitively guide you to highlight what needs to be highlighted.
Yeah. And work with someone that you feel a bit of a connection with, because it is all about being able to trust the person enough to do that work of going within, to sort of identify those triggers. And it's not always that scary what the trigger is. So sometimes your mind, something can happen in the playground that you've long forgotten about. Like, someone becomes your best friend. 5-year-olds are quite fickle. 1 minute they're best friends with you, the next minute they're best friends with someone else. And it could be that has triggered a feeling, because that's quite upsetting when you're 5.
Yes.
If you couldn't process the emotion at the time, it could have triggered a feeling where your brain's going, oh, when you get close to someone, you know what? They leave a little while later. And then you might, for no apparent reason, 20, 40 years later be really suspicious of a partner anytime they do something that looks a little bit fishy, and you don't know, but that's triggering something that happened when you were 5. Or it might not even have happened to you. So you could see something on TV and your brain could go, you know what, that looks like that person's going through a really bad time. Let's never let this happen to us. And it's kind of protecting you from something that you've seen someone else go through. So don't be worried about doing this work. Like Shaima said, it's not about blame. And it might not even be that something huge has happened, and it could be that something huge has happened and you've uncovered that, but don't worry about that. You can go through it, you can get through it, you can process it.
Yes.
Just journaling helps you process it without doing any of the other parts of the exercise, because it's telling your story. Once your story's out, and you might need to say it a few times, once your story's out and understood, your brain will just let it go. And it's amazing, because then you'll be able to move forward with greater ease.
Yes. So our challenge for you this month is to use one of the tools that we've mentioned, whatever resonates with you the most. So if you want to journal, explore hypnotherapy, that's wonderful. Reach out to a coach, just have an exploratory conversation if you want to think about some of this some more. Or if you don't want to do any of that, just take some time for yourself. Just sit, meditate on it, just think, okay, what situation triggers a behavior in me that I'd rather not happen? And where might that have come from in the past? And just give yourself that space just to think about it. Because like we say, sometimes being aware of it is all you need. Because when it pops up next time, you can say, oh, I know where that comes from. And then it's lost all of its power over you.
Yeah. And be patient with it. So you might not notice at first that you're changing. Another really good reason to look back is because you can see how far you've come.
Yes.
So something that you might not have done when you were younger and you're more confident doing now, or a situation that might have triggered you when you were, before, and now you've worked on it and it isn't triggering you anymore. You can go, oh, look, actually, I've grown.
For sure.
And you might not notice, but actually looking back helps you unpick those as well.
Yeah.
So one situation for me was my dad was really keen on timeliness. So if we got home late, we'd sort of get into trouble. Now, as Shaima said, that's not a good or a bad thing. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
Fast forward to when I'm married, I was running late getting home, and I was, the conversation in my head was, oh gosh, I'm going to get into trouble. My husband's going to be mad at me. We're going to end up having an argument. And I was ready to defend myself. I was ready to walk through the door and say, look, things happen. It's not my fault I was late. I was trying to get home on time, etc., etc., etc. I got through the door and he hadn't actually noticed that I was running late, or, didn't really care, and was sort of like, oh, hi, and greeted me really nicely. And all of that adrenaline I had inside me, it just had to go. I don't know where it went. So that's the point. Like once you've identified all these triggers, you don't have random hormones going through your body for no reason, getting you to fight. But because I was able to pause, so the old me would have gone in and started the argument so that I could have the first say. But because I was able to pause and take a step back, I noticed where he was, and actually that he didn't know, didn't care. And then I could question myself and think, actually, why did I assume that I was going to get into trouble, that we were going to have an argument, that he wasn't going to like it, etc., etc. And then I was able to go back and sort of go, oh, well, okay, let's let that go. Let's let my subconscious know that I don't need to be projecting this relationship, my childhood, fear of being late onto my relationship with my husband.
Yes.
So, it just created that space, and then I celebrated the fact that actually I'd worked on my emotions enough to be able to create that space. But it can take time, so be gentle with yourself, be patient with yourself, and definitely look back and notice when you've improved.
Yes, and I think that's quite a common thing actually for us to project someone's past behaviour onto our current person, particularly with a partner. So if you're aware of that, like you say, celebrate that, because it's very common for us to, maybe if we were, abandoned by a friend, like you say, as a 5-year-old in the playground, we will go through life with a fear of abandonment, and we'll be very worried about our partner going off, and, we might have trust issues around that, and that's all just stems from something that happened when you were 5. And, it can create quite a tense dynamic between you and your partner, but that's fine. Like we say, be patient with yourself. If you can identify these things, just the fact you're watching these videos and you're doing this kind of work is a huge thing to celebrate, because this path does take work, and it does take a lot of introspection. So awesome that you're doing this work, and thank you so much for watching.
Thank you. It is worth it.
It is worth it. And as always, if you need support, we are always here for you. Drop us a message on Facebook, email us, or just post a link in the comment box, post a question in the comment box, and we would love to hear from you. So lots of love, and we will see you next time.
See you next time. Thank you.
Bye.